Welcome to the Mastering Your Money Mindset podcast, where you'll learn to think like a top producing RVP. Each week, we interview top performers so they can help you have a success mindset with actionable advice. Today, we're joined by Tom Connelly. Tom was an accountant and found himself to be not very happy. He wasn't loving what he did. Someone came up to him and started to talk to him about becoming a wholesaler, an RVP. He had never heard of it. And 12 years later, that's what he's been doing. And he's going to share today some of his knowledge, some of his insights, some of his wins, some things that he's been doing to be very successful. Tom, tell me how you got into the financial services industry.
I went to college for accounting. Think about when you grow up as a kid, you think about people who were successful. I had an uncle or close friend of family who was a CPA, a partner from a Big Four. And I was like, I'm really going into accounting. I like numbers, was always good at math. So I said, that's what I'm going to go to college for. And along the way, I met my now wife, my girlfriend, then in college, and her father was a financial advisor. And I got to know a little bit about what he did. But he also told me about some of his brother-in-laws and close friends of his family who were wholesalers. He told me what they did, and I was like, what is that? I've never heard of that. So anyway, I went to college, and I got my accounting degree, and I went into the accounting world early on. I went into auditing and just really did not love it. It was something that I couldn't see myself continuing on. I felt like I was working a lot of long hours, and I wasn't getting paid appropriately. I was going for my CPA exam. The CPA exam, it was a time where they were changing the requirements where you had to have 125 college credits in order to get your CPA if you hadn't passed one part yet. I had about an 8-month window to pass one part of the CPA, which is 4 parts. I didn't get part passed. So that was tough. I had a big decision to make. Do I want to continue on this road where I'm not really sure? I had to go back and get more college credits, which is almost a full year of college credits. I talked to a couple of people that were in the environment of financial services and wholesaling. I said, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it now. I think I was 24 years old. And I said, let's just make this jump. I took a 50% pay cut to get into the business, to be an internal wholesaler. And it's funny how it all started out. I was going to Hartford on the annuity side back in the old plant days, where a lot of my connection in the industry derived from. And I got the offer, and I got it on a Monday. I gave my 2 weeks in my accounting job. I was there about a year and a half. And they were a little upset. They were like, you're changing careers already? I'm like, this is where I want to go. So not even 2 days later, I get an alert that Hartford was exiting the annuity business. This is in 2012. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is a great start to changing careers. Taking a 50% pay cut, and yet now the company I'm going to work for is exiting the business. So my accounting company said, we're going to allow for you to stick around for a couple more months until you find a job. You've already expressed interest, you're going to get out of this business and go somewhere else. So we'll let you stick around and until you find something, let you interview. And it was great. I truly appreciate how they handled that. It was back in over 12 years ago. But long story short, I ended up getting a gig at Lincoln Financial. Not even a month later, I had some buddies there, got me interviews right away. And that was really the start of my financial services industry. It's funny how it all played out, but I don't have one regret this day of leaving that accounting industry early on and going in this direction.
You mentioned when you were doing the accounting, you really didn't like it. You didn't have a love for it. How important do you think that having a love for what you do is in thriving and being successful?
I think absolutely. Every day you have to wake up and enjoy what you do. I truly do enjoy what I get to do. I get to work with different people every single day. I get to build relationships. In the public accounting world, you saw what the partners of these firms were all the ones who were making the money. And they were the ones who were building the relationships. They were the ones who were meeting with the owners of the companies that we were working for, that were our clients. I would say that's what I'd love to do. But that's a long projection. That's a 10-year, 15-year path sometimes to become a partner of these firms. And you're essentially the one doing all the dirty work a lot of times. So I just said, I don't have that time. I don't have the 10, 15 years to go and make those kind of dollars where I can do it sooner. I knew with wholesaling, you could get there. And I've been told by a few people, you'd be great at this gig. This is something you should look at. That was a change. I'm working 60, 70 hours a week to make a staff accountant 2 years in, not much money. I said, I can go work harder elsewhere and make a lot more. That's where I took the leap. I also knew that job had positives that came with it. There's things that benefit you, not only financially, but also there's a lot of great that comes with this role. There's a lot of things that people don't realize, well, that can tick you every single day. But it's about having the right mindset and continuing on and figuring that out. How do you win the day, essentially? And it didn't take me too long to realize that I wanted to go that route. But again, I don't have one regret ever making that career change 12 years ago.
How do you win your day? I think that's a really important part of starting out the day on some kind of foundation. So what do you do to win your day?
Every day is different. I got two little kids that can always throw a wrench into things too, a 5 and 3-year-old. But most days I always like to get up, start out with a workout. I do some preparation in our trainings as well too. I try to knock those out early on in the morning. It sets the day, the roadmap for my day. If I can get a good workout in, if I can get a little bit of mindset training in the morning to start out. I try to plan ahead my day and weeks that week of. Doesn't always go as planned, but I feel like if you get those two tough things out of the way early on in the morning, and then you get your basics to the kids for get ready for school and get them in the door, babysitters, whatever, it just sets the day to go a lot more smoother and to hopefully continue to have multiple wins throughout the day.
Being around all the RVPs and having friendships with a lot of people in your field, what do you think their biggest struggles are?
That's an interesting question. We're all very similar. We're always trying to get better in our craft, whether that's just working with new advisors, new agents out there in the field, whether that's figuring out a way to get a foot in the door somewhere, building a relationship. We our own worst enemy sometimes when it comes to this business, because you can be so successful so soon and so quickly. And then the next thing, you have one minor setback and you have a mini freak out, and you're just thinking about, how do I get back to that? How do I get back on track? How do I get back to where I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I know many wholesalers that have been doing this for 20 to 30 years. It's sometimes hard to believe that someone can last that long in this business as on the wholesale side of things. But I think a lot of it now that I'm learning through our training over the past few months here, that a lot of it is mindset. A lot of it is having the right frame of mind, and how do you overcome those objections, and what is going on mentally that's impacting those decisions, and how do you overcome it? How do you become better every single day? I think that's something that we all tend to struggle with, but overcoming that and having the proper mindset and training, I think, is what a lot of these individuals in our roles, that's how they have these long tenured careers.
What do you think makes you most successful in this business?
I've always been, from day one, I've always been a big relationship guy. It's how I developed myself, is just trying to find a similarity with somebody I'm trying to connect with. And again, business aside, business will essentially come at some point. But if I can always connect with somebody on a personal level, that's always been my biggest foot in the door and how I get a relationship started. I always am big on service too. And when it comes to my business, the service, in my opinion, is first and foremost. Being readily available. If I miss a phone call, I'm calling my guys back right away. I'm getting back from right away. Emails, I'm constantly on. And sometimes it's a blessing and a curse. There's times where it's late at night and I see an email come through and I will respond, or sometimes I won't, but I want to. It's how I've been built. It's my work ethic. Because I understand how important it is to provide that service. That goes a long way in developing the relationship. If the person on the other end, whether it's the financial advisor, the insurance agent, whoever you're dealing with, or they see that value that you bring from the start, a lot of things go sideways in this business, especially the life insurance world, that sometimes are out of our control. But if they can appreciate the value and the effort that you're putting forward and know that you're always available for them when they need you, that will definitely be big in building that relationship. And that's really how I developed myself. I went through early on in my career when I was at Lincoln, as I mentioned, I went to a wholesaler institute. And that was really just one of the things that always stood out to me. Hearing from all these successful wholesalers and divisional managers and their experiences and just the value add you bring as an individual. You can be the greatest salesman in the world, but if you're not going to be a true partner to them, to the advisor in their practice, at the end of the day, what value you bring to them, that's not there. So that's where I hang my hat first and foremost.
If you had to come up with one more key item, what would that be? Service is one. What's the other?
But you could pick and choose any wholesaler you want to work with, any insurance company you want to work with. You can pick and choose. But I want them to understand too, not only is that we provide a service, but it's a partnership. My title is a regional vice president, but some titles of people in our role are external wholesalers. And a lot of that is, in my opinion, more of a transactional process. You have mutual fund wholesalers, you have annuity wholesalers that's transactional business. Here's an idea, here's a fund, and the advisor drops a quick ticket and it's done. There's not much service required on that. But as a true partnership, as an extension of their team, so in our business, the life insurance business, you're not going away in the matter of one day. It's a true partnership as an extension of their practice. So I want them to understand, not only provide you a service, we're also here to partner with you and help that life insurance process. It can be a 2, 3, 4-month process for just one case. That's why I mentioned things can go sideways, especially when you deal with underwriters and you're dealing with medical history. That can take some time. When people get frustrated on both sides of the house, we got to be the ones to really hold both sides accountable and make sure that we're there to support them and get them through that process, because some carriers don't always have that support level you can get from an insurance company that does provide it. So when you are there to provide it, you got to be ready to go. And that falls on myself, my internal partner at the home office. I've recently got a hybrid as well too, who's been a great resource to my team also. So between the three of us, it's been a great partnership to be able to provide these advisors and their practices just a true extension. We don't get all the business, and it's not a bad thing, but when you are providing that, sometimes you're getting a shot at every case. And if you do well, you perform well, everyone knows our story. We'll be in the mix every time.
I hear often from RVPs is they struggle sometimes to get in front of more financial advisors. They struggle to get on the phones and make the calls they know they need to make. They struggle for the follow-up. What would your advice be? And what have you done for yourself when it comes to getting into that situation?
It goes back to where you and I started about 3 or 4 months ago, and understanding a lot of the mindset that goes into how our mind works. I'm so thankful that I've gone through this process with you to understand that, because I've been on a really good run the past 3 or 4 years, and not have some setbacks, but business has slowed in a certain way, and we're trying to get back to what it was a year ago, 6 months ago. And sometimes you fall into the hole that you get stuck. You're not sure what to do, who to call, what activity you need to do. You've been so used to just having so much success, and none of that things come naturally. We're always being proactive in our day to day, but there's going to be windows where you might find that, hey, there's been a 2-3 month window where it's not as busy as it was. And how do you go about fulfilling your time slot to make it the most efficient to increase your practice and increase your region? And by going through the exercise with you and learning about these, when I get stuck and I revert back to my comfort zone, I understand what's going on mentally, and that now I can overcome those challenges that I maybe have faced over the past 6 to 12 months to allow me to know, how do we go about battling that? How do we pick up the phone and call that agent we might have been putting off for 2-3 months, or call that individual who we've been trying to get a foot in the door with for the past year or two. So again, that mindset is huge, and understanding what's going on there has been worth every single time that we stood together.
After procrastinating for a period of time, we actually start to feel some fear. How do you deal with the fear when you feel that?
The fear of failure in our business is real. Fear of rejection and the fear of failure. Because there's times where we want to make that phone call, we want to call a person, but we're not sure what's going to come out on the other side of it. From us not knowing what's coming out on the other side of it is going to only dig us in a deeper hole to not continue to be proactive. So obviously changing that mindset to be positive, to think about what actually is going to happen and what can happen. And recently you and I have come with this little slogan, anything is possible. And there's been times where, and I use an example, it was a Monday. Mondays are sometimes tough in our world. I feel like every wholesaler now, Monday is their office day. It's just come off the weekend, you're getting ready for the week. Since COVID, you're probably have an extra office day now than we might have had in the past. And Monday just seems to be a day when everyone's in the office. So as you're preparing for that week and you're getting going, you get stuck off a weekend. And I was procrastinating a little bit, but I know I had to hit my goals and my calls, and I changed my mindset, got into the right mindset, and made a phone call to an agent who I'd never spoken to before, who I had on a list to call. And what happened? We got on the phone. We actually booked a call that Thursday, did an intro call, a full half hour. We opened up some opportunities, some ideas. They're pretty big AUM, but they do some big life insurance cases. So now we're setting another call with him and the partner, the owner of the company, within the next couple of weeks to dive a little deeper. But had I not made that phone call, that opportunity wouldn't even arrive. I think, again, the positive mindset, knowing what's possible, as Michael Jordan said, you miss 100, or Wayne Gretzky, I think it was, you miss 100% shots you don't take. So at the end of the day, what can happen? Or worst thing that can happen is they say no and move on to the next one. But I think overcoming that fear of denial is huge in our business. And I think all wholesalers struggle with that at some point in their career.
Rejection can be a really tough one for most people. You're feeling that fear of rejection. You said, I take action. How do you get yourself to take action? You get yourself in that mindset, but what do you do to get yourself there and then just move quickly?
Get in the right frame of mind. It might even be physically, right? For me, I played college baseball, as I told you before. And for me, it's thinking about, if I'm sitting on a 2-0 fastball, how am I set up? What am I looking for? How do I feel comfortable? Same thing. If I'm going to make a phone call that I want to get comfortable making, for me, it's, hey, I'm usually standing up. I'm usually going to go put headphones on. I may walk around. I tend to be a little bit better on the phone when I'm in that frame of mind, right? When I'm comfortable standing, walking, versus being slouched at my computer or at my desk. I just feel like I bring a little more energy. So for me, it might be, let's get up, let's go outside and take a walk and bang out 4 or 5 calls. Gives you some energy. And for me, it just puts me in that right frame of mind to be able to make those calls. That's my power zone.
Yeah, I love that power zone. When you first started playing baseball, when you very first started and you would get up to the plate, you probably felt some fear when you would get up there. How did that fear start to go away over time?
Repetition. It's really what it comes down to. And you can correlate that right in our business. The more people you talk to, the more practice you get, the more you're gonna overcome that fear. Growing up in this business, you started as an internal wholesaler. That's where I was at Lincoln for 3 years. And you take 50, 60, 70 calls a day sometimes. You're between being outbound calls, inbound calls, everything. And then you transition to the outside, the external role. You still are in that, the mindset is still the same. It does start to wear off a little bit, only because you're just so embedded in your business. You're so focused on growing that you might not be as proactive on the phone as you once were. So over time, that does start to wear off. But bringing that repetition back, as I've seen recently, getting back into that repetition, making more calls on a day-to-day basis, it helps overcome that fear of rejection that we all tend to sometimes fall into at some point in time. But it's funny because I tell this to my son, and my son's 5 years old. I'm coaching his baseball team, and we'll be having catches and do something where I just say, don't be afraid. The balls are going to hurt you or whatever it is. And then they trust you, and then they slowly change what they're doing. And the next thing you know, they're catching anytime. So you can, again, relate it to what we do on a day-to-day, right? We make couple changes and continue to repeat what we're doing and get repetition. It just can make us better.
How do you track your business?
Probably need to be a little bit better at that between submitted and paid reports. That's what our region looks like right now. We're trying to put together a system that understands, hey, how many calls a week do we need to make as a team to know that based on what our goal is for the year, how many touches a week do we need to have? And what does that look like? As I brought on a hybrid now and we have a new internal, we're trying to get that number. But for me, it's every day making my 5 calls a day, proactive new phone calls, and 5 emails a day too, right? If I can hit those numbers every single day. Recently, you and I, we talked about, hey, asking for a referral once a week too, which we're working on our practice as well too. So for me, if I hit those numbers, I understand that we're going to be on the right track. And that's something that I learned early on. There was a divisional at Lincoln who taught me about this program that he would use based on outbound calls and illustrations, and he would give himself a scorecard every single week. Actually, now that guy is the national sales manager. Actually, I think he might be head of a division now at Lincoln. I always stuck with me. If I can get to 100 points every single week, I know that I'm going to have a good submit week, or business is going to continue to flow. I need to get back to doing a little more of that, but the submitted business is really how I track, knowing what our submits are per month. And funny you say this, because the last month of May was our biggest submit month this year. And it stems from some of the training we've been doing. And again, it was similar to what it was the past 2 to 3 years. So we're trying to get back to what that was. But I know when I can see the submits getting back to the normal levels, I know we're going to have decent paid months and ultimately be close to our goals.
When you're playing baseball and you get up, you have a choice. You can either swing the bat or watch the ball go by. The only way you're ever going to hit the ball is if you swing the bat. And the only way that you're going to get more people is by picking up the phone, making the calls, and getting in front of more people, period.
Today's world, I feel like 4 or 5 years ago, it was definitely easier to get in-person meetings. I don't know if COVID changed this or not, but I like people, so it can be draining sometimes when you feel like you're putting out way too much output. You're not getting the input you receive, but that's the nature of the beast. That's what we have to overcome that and continue on every single day, because we're all out there can be in, and there's enough business to go around for everybody, but it definitely is different than what it was 4 or 5 years ago. But if you're not taking the shots, you're never gonna know.
I was listening to David Goggins the other day. He's a Navy SEAL. He was a Ranger. He's an Iron Man, but he was once way overweight and wasn't able to do any of this. But he challenged himself and got himself to consistently do things that he would never do, things that were outside of his comfort zone. How important do you think it is to consistently step outside the comfort zone?
It's super important. It goes back to a lot of the mindset training that we've been doing in the past few months, just understanding you have to get uncomfortable in our world. You just stay in that comfort zone and you continue to hit that barrier wall and bounce back, and now you're going to be back to square one, and you're going to just continue to do what you're going to do. I think every day you have to at some point make yourself uncomfortable, and that could be making 4 or 5 calls to somebody you never talked to before, whatever that is. I think at the end of the day, if you're not making yourself uncomfortable, this job is just an average job. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Again, I go back to that wholesaling. People think they look and see money, or look and see trips. They look and see, like, next week we're on our leaders trip in Bahamas. So I'm sure my friends will make something up like, oh, you're on another work trip in the Bahamas or a nice place. But again, people don't see though the fear, the rejection, the late hours, working 9, 10 at night some nights, the phone calls we deal with. They don't realize that sometimes we're away a lot from our family. There's a lot that goes into it too. If you were comfortable every day, I don't think you'd be able to have the success that we can have in this industry and in this business. So for me, I always tell myself, if I'm getting too comfortable, that's not a good sign.
Do you have to take a massive step out of your comfort zone, or could you just take small steps?
I think small steps totally are all good, because I think the more small steps you take, it's going to help you overall. It might be one phone call a day that you don't want to make. You do make it, and that's going to continue to help build the strength that you need to overcome some of these objections that we face on a day-to-day business. That's in every environment in a way, in my opinion.
There is a woman who wanted to run a marathon. This is a true story. She had never run before in her life. What she decided was she was going to go outside and she was going to run to the first mailbox and then back to her house. And then on the second day, she was going to run to the second mailbox and then back to her house. And she kept doing it that way, one small step at a time. She ended up being able to run the marathon by taking the approach of one small step at a time.
It's amazing. It goes right back to what we were talking about, baby steps in a way. I think it's the same thing in our businesses. Every effort you put into your practice is going to make you better overall in some capacity. It might end up being something different. I think we talk about getting on that same wavelength as other individuals who might think the same way. Same with the lady who was running the marathon. She had that mindset. She had that vision to get there, and she knew she could. Anything is possible. And I'd imagine she was having that envision of her finishing that marathon and continue to go. Same thing as us. I have on my computer here, I'm looking at it right now, what my goal is for the year. I'm reminded that every single day. I got to have a goal. I got to have something in mind going to get me there. How I go about that, it's going to be up to me and some of the practices that I do in my day-to-day. But if you don't have the vision, if you don't have the goal planted in your head, how are you ever going to get there?
That's a great point. If you got in the car and you wanted to drive out to California, but you didn't have any kind of plan to get there, how would you ever get there?
At the very least, you put in the ways. At least you would know you have some sort of plan. But if you didn't have, hop in the car, start driving, You go left, it's going to be inefficient. And I think in our business, everything goes up and down. There's peaks and valleys for sure, but you're continuing to progress along the way. Right. And that's the biggest thing. That's why in wholesaling, the hardest thing is, I think a lot of my colleagues will tell you this. In January 1, we're back to zero. That's the biggest thing for us. And usually the goal goes up, and there's other changes too. If you go off course and you take a 2-3 month of procrastination where you're not in the right mindset, then you might have some impact there. But it's funny how a lot of things play out, because even if you're trying to find that next producer, or you're out there trying to build new relationships, next thing you know, one comes along that you maybe weren't expecting. It's funny how the business works. But again, it goes back to getting on that same wavelength and thinking at a higher level.
I'm glad you brought this up. So you're talking about getting on the frequency. So someone listening might say, what in the world is he talking about? So what are you talking about? What does that mean? How could you break that down in really simplistic terms so anyone would understand that?
The easiest way to think of it is, there's successful people out there who think differently, who have her mindset has been trained to be at the top. That's how they got there. So if we can have the same mindset, the same thought process, the same truth, the same goals, and as they are, now we're on that same wavelength. And in order to get to where we want to be, we have to be on that wavelength. If we are on a wavelength that is average, then that's where we're going to be. If you want to do great things, if you want to be more successful, if you want to go further in life, you have to think on those wavelengths as some of the elite. Not saying we're going to be ever the elite, but we can, if we want to be, the only way we can get there is by thinking like them and being on that same wavelength.
If I pick up the phone and I want to call you, Tom, and I dial Frank's number, is that going to get me to you?
No.
I got to be on the frequency. What you're saying is, if we talk to successful people and we know what they're doing and we know how they're thinking, and we emulate that and we get on that same wavelength, might we get the same results?
Absolutely. It's funny. I was saying this a couple weeks ago, but out of the blue, I got a call from an advisor who I hadn't talked to in a while, and he came and he had this huge opportunity. I hadn't talked to him probably a while, or at least a few months, maybe longer, but we were on the same wavelength. And again, it's funny how things happen like that, but I believe it.
If you could give one piece of advice, only one, this is the most important thing I think you should do as an RVP to be more successful, what do you think that would be?
Showing up in this business is honestly 90% of this job. And you're going to show up in multiple different ways. Just getting to the meeting is one thing, or whatever that might be. But showing up in every facet, you can show up in every facet of this role, you're going to be successful. You're going to have opportunities, in my opinion. I have colleagues who sometimes they might not respond to an email that was sent. It just drives me nuts sometimes. So I think showing up is 9% of this business, but it's constantly networking. If you are like a master networker, it's one thing to do it inside the financial service world, but even outside of your other networks, because it all leads to something. I think about, I play golf and my golf club, and even if I play golf with 3 other guys who aren't in the financial service industry, you have conversations, they might know somebody. The guy who I'm playing with isn't even an advisor or an agent, but he knows somebody. So it's just that's a huge part of it. If I was sitting next to somebody on a plane, but I didn't talk to them at all, I didn't mention anything of what we did or what they do, how do I know that maybe they couldn't be in our business or know somebody? So you just never know. You really never know. And I think if you can figure out a way to continue to grow in the network and build relationships and show up, you're going to be all right in this business.
How important is it for an RVP to take responsibility, and how do they best do that?
I've learned that a lot recently in some of this training with you. In our world, especially as I mentioned before, life insurance world, things can go sideways. But at the end of the day, we're responsible. We can't point the finger at anybody else. Yeah, everybody else is doing their job. The responsibility falls on us. I always thought I've had 3 internals now. With my current company, I've been there 4.5 years, and I've had on my 3rd internal. And each one that I've lost in the past has gone to do other things within the company. But I always I always tell them at the end of the day, you're going to continue to excel on your career. This isn't a forever role. I've been there. I want to help you grow and get to the next part of your career, whatever that is, whether you want to be an RVP, whether you want to go into somewhere in a home office, whatever that might be. So I don't expect you to be here forever. Because I want you to continue your career. You're helping this region, you're helping to support me, but it's going to fall on me. It's my region at the end of the day. I'm the one responsible. But so quick in this business, we can point the finger so easily to so many different things. Underwriting the challenge, service the challenge, this advisor's having issues, whatever it is. And I hear every day. We hear from colleagues, from people in the industry. And I've been trying to just recently just clear that out. Just not even take it into consideration because there's always going to be noise. I've been in this business now 12 years. You've dealt with noise every single day and people complain. So it's all about falling on yourself and taking full responsibility. And I think as you continue to take more responsibility on yourself, you will be more successful because you don't have to worry about hearing the negativity out there or hearing the people that are complaining. It just goes in one ear or the other, whether you want to agree with it or not. A lot of it's staying positive and continue to understand that.
What book that you've read in the past has made the biggest impact in your life and why?
Yeah, Never Eat Alone is a book. I think key for Ozzy, because that's the whole networking thing too. It's a cool book to really just help you think differently when you are building your network. It's been a great resource for me, and I always revert back to it. I think I read it a few years back, but I should go back and read it again and refresh it after going through some of our training. But it's always been a book that I've always got about networking and building your circles. It's been great intel in there.
In order to not eat alone, what do you have to do?
You got to make phone calls. You got to, again, I cover a large region. I cover almost a whole Maine down to Maryland is my territory. So it's not every day I can go be in the Philadelphia area and go and get to someone in Boston for lunch. But if I can have lunch with somebody 3 days a week in our business, I can have breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day of 3 different people. And that's the beauty of it. That's how you continue to network. You're seeing the people and you're building those relationships. As you build more relationships, more referrals come and business will come in some way, shape, or form.
Last question. What are final words that you have for anyone that might be listening and potentially struggling a little bit? What's your advice for them?
It's been 12 years now and in a higher level role now for about 5 years. And in the role before, I was about 4 years in a hybrid role. So for about 8 to 9 years, I've been out in the field working with advisors directly. I never really had any kind of coaching. And when I say coaching, we've all gone through sales training courses or whatever that might be, but an actual coaching model. But I really do believe, and I'm so thankful that I've learned some of this stuff from you and the mindset, because I never really took the time to invest in myself. Everything really in this business has come to me. I've always been big on work ethic, work hard every single day, and things will come, and they have. I've been fortunate and blessed to have a great career so far, but I am glad that I did take the step with you and learning about some of these mental aspects of not only just life, but how it impacts our day, how we operate. Every single person in these roles, as wholesalers, as RVPs, go through the same struggles every single day. And a lot of them go through it and they don't even know why. So for me, it's been huge in uncovering that, because now I understand how the mind works, what is going through my mind, and how do I correct it. Yeah. So for anyone listening, I mean, this might be a plug for you here, but I think coaching and having the right mindset is imperative in getting the results we want to have in my day-to-day, whatever it is. Like you might see something on LinkedIn, or you might see some post somewhere, or you might hear something, and you start to be more aware of some of these mindset things that are out there. And before, you might have seen something and just glanced over it or thought, oh, that's interesting. But now you actually, I know what they're referring to, or I understand what they're talking about, and I can relate to it much better than I would have a couple of years ago. Now I know if I'm ever in a position where I'm just procrastinating or I'm not in the right frame of mind, I know how to change that, and we continue on.
Beautiful. Tom, thanks so much for spending time and sharing. And there will be people that hear this and you're going to touch them in a specific way, and you probably will never be aware of it, but that's what we do. We take what we learn and we just spread it to other people so that they can ultimately benefit and perform at their best level. So thanks for helping to do that today.
Thank you, Mike, for having me. And again, thank you for everything you've taught me. It's been a fun ride, and we're still continuing on. So
I'm excited for the adventure. It's only getting better.
That's right.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, here are 2 things you can do right now to get in front of more financial advisors. 1, take our complimentary 21-day mindset challenge. You'll receive a 2-minute video every day for 21 days, which will help you make the calls, follow up, and get more financial advisors as clients. If you'd rather jump in and get even better results, this is an invitation to join our waiting list for a complimentary 1-hour coaching call. Go to michaelfoxcoach.com. Again, that's michaelfoxcoach.com to sign up for the 21-day mindset challenge or get on our waiting list for a complimentary coaching call.